Welcome into Seahawks Today by Chat Sports. I'm Meghan Payton. We've got your Week 6 preview coming up, but I want your early score predictions. Go to the comments right now and predict the Seahawks versus Steelers score. We're going to be going over all of the keys to victories, but get your score predictions in now. I'll tell you mine later in this video. Well, it's time for the first game for Seattle without Russell Wilson. They are going to be headed to Pittsburgh to take on the Steelers. And right now, the Steelers are favorites at -5, which is somewhat surprising based on the way that the Steelers have been playing. I understand where everyone stands with the line has been shifting. And I understand it because you don't know what's going to happen with Geno. Obviously, this spread would look a lot different if Russell Wilson is in. Obviously, he's not. We are going to go over, though, what I think are the 5 keys to victory for the Seattle Seahawks. But first, I do want to give you guys a quick injury update. Most of this you probably already know. Russell Wilson, obviously out with the finger injury. Ethan Pocic, we know that. He's got the knee, not playing. Bobby Wagner, though, this is one that I do want to talk about because he's questionable with a knee injury. Now, I am confident that he is going to play. It didn't seem like Pete Carroll thought that there was going to be much issue with him not playing, but he is dealing with that banged up knee. So even if he does play, though, I do feel a little bit concerned about his performance. He's obviously a great player for the Seahawks. He is key to this defense. So even if Bobby Wagner is playing in this Steelers game, my hope is that he's healthy enough to be as dominant as he can, because we do know that the Seahawks have been struggling a lot on defense. Chris Carson, we know that he's been dealing with that neck injury. He's questionable. And again, that neck injury is something that's been kind of like a long-term issue for Carson. Pete Carroll says that it's something that just flares up, but he did say on Wednesday that it's moving in the right direction. He didn't practice on Wednesday, but he is supposed to practice on Thursday, so we will keep you updated on Chris Carson. Now, the other interesting one, Dee Eskridge. We talked about how odd it was for him to miss so much time with the concussion. Now, he actually is getting placed on IR, so they're going to wait this out. It's clearly not the ideal situation. I think we all expected him to miss maybe a week or two. That's not the situation for Dee Eskridge, so not great to see, but hoping that he can be back after the 3-week minimum for the IR. Now, obviously, the main thing that everyone's going to be talking about coming into this game is Russell Wilson not playing. And obviously, this is a huge blow to Seattle, but hey, we could sit here and talk about Russell Wilson for days and days and how much it sucks him not being able to play. But let's have some faith in Geno. Geno is not a scrub. I think he's going to have a good game. I mean, to me, I think that this is one of the keys to victories, and we're going to get into what needs to happen. But I do want to ask you guys first, before we talk about stats and everything, how confident are you in Geno keeping us in the playoff race? Now, I know we haven't seen much of Geno, but I want to know before this game, go scale it 1 to 10. And if you get the ad break right here on YouTube, this is our pinned comment. So make sure you get your votes in. Go to the comments right now. And after the ad, I will let you know what I think. Right now, I am going to give my confidence level a 6. Now, it seems a little bit low, or maybe to you it seems a little bit high, but a 6 for me is just slightly above average, just because we haven't seen enough of Geno. Now, I do think he's a veteran. This is why Pete Carroll has a guy like him as a backup. You know, and you hope at least that he is going to make smart decisions. He is going to be mentally prepared for this game. So I am hopeful in Geno Smith, but I do feel like it wouldn't be realistic to give a higher score without seeing really a real, play from him. But the keys to victory for this game, the first one obviously is going to be seeing a decent performance by Geno Smith. And the reason I say decent is because I don't think any of us are expecting him to come out and put up Russell Wilson numbers. We're not going to be comparing him to Russell Wilson, but we just want to see him play smart. I don't want to see any, dumb plays where you're just feeling the pressure, because there is a lot of pressure that comes with replacing Russell Wilson. I just want to see him calm and I really just want to see no interceptions. To me, that is so important, and that is why I think a key to victory is for Geno Smith to have a decent game, because the Steelers offense, let's be honest, it hasn't been great. There's been a lot of talk about Big Ben and his decline. Now, they did improve last week, and they came up on a big win against the Broncos, but ultimately their offense isn't doing so great. So this is an opportunity that you do not want to give. If you throw interceptions and let their defense come up on top and then give the offense great field positions, these are all things that you want to avoid. But the Steelers defense is something that I would be afraid of. Now, I'm going to talk a little bit about their stats. Right now, they've allowed an average of a 246.3 passing yards per game, only 1 interception so far, and 10 sacks in 2021. Now, I see that if you look at this, there's a lot of people that would say, that's not so great. But I'm telling you that these stats are misleading. To me, this defense is pretty good. I think that TJ Watt, Minkah Fitzpatrick, Cameron Hayward, all of these guys, Terrell Edmonds, they are going to come ready to play because their offense stepped up a little bit for them last week. Now they know they need to step up as well. So I think that this is an area that the Seahawks do have to be concerned about. Do not get overly confident in the decline performance that you might think you've seen from the Steelers on defense. But I will ask right now, we talk about interceptions not being a thing that you want to happen for Seattle. How many picks, be honest, how many picks do you think Geno is going to throw on Sunday? Get it in the comments. And also, if you do think he's going to throw a lot, I hate to say this, but maybe bet on the Steelers. If you are going to bet at all, whether it's Steelers or Seahawks, make sure you're checking out BetUS. They have an amazing deal right now where if you go to chatsports.com/bet, you use the promo code Seahawks125, you are going to get a 125% deposit bonus. That means if you put up $100, it's going to turn into $225. That's $125 of free betting money. So if you're going to bet on anyone, make sure you're checking out BetUS. Next thing that the Seahawks need to do in order to win against the Steelers, that's slowing down Najee Harris. Now, Najee Harris has been very impressive this year, and we're just really starting to see what he's able to do. We didn't get to see much really just because the Steelers' offensive line had been playing so bad in the first few weeks. Well, they stepped up, left some holes for Najee, and Najee has been very impressive. He had over 100 rushing yards last week, and I think he's just going to keep improving. I wouldn't be surprised if this happened again, but so far he's had 78 carries, 307 yards, an average of 3.9, and 2 touchdowns, also a receiving touchdown as well. So that's the other thing about Najee Harris. He can be utilized in different ways. He's obviously most of the time going to be used in the rush game and the run game, but he's also a receiving weapon too. And now obviously knowing that Juju's gone, I could see them utilizing him a little bit more. And this is where I think I see this and I'm like, man, I hope Bobby Wagner is going to be playing because he would be very helpful here. The Seahawks haven't been great at, slowing down the run. It's just an unfortunate problem for the Seahawks. And these, this falls on guys like Vincent Mayowa. This falls on guys like Poona Ford, Rasheem Green, Darrell Taylor. I will say Taylor's been very well. We'll talk about him later, but they need to slow down the run. And if they let Najee Harris just run right through them, this is not going to be good. Obviously, Bobby Wagner would be great to have back, to help take down Najee Harris, Jordan Brooks, obviously, as well. These are all things, though, you have to worry about if you're taking on such a dominant running back like Najee Harris, who's only going to improve week to week, in my opinion. Next up on the key to victories is going to be getting pressure on Big Ben. Now, I'm sure you've heard the rumors and the talk about Big Ben and his decline and just how he's not living up to what the Steelers expected. But don't get overly confident in that as well, because Big Ben has heard all of the criticism. He improved last week and he is going to come ready to play. But if we do know one thing, we know that he's aging. He doesn't have as much stamina as he did, years ago. So the more pressure that you can get on him, the slower it's going to take him down. And I think that that's important. And, a guy like Darrell Taylor, he's the one that's been doing this right now for the Seahawks. He's had 4 sacks already. He's had 3 tackles for loss, 1 forced fumble. So he's a guy that I expect to put pressure on Big Ben this week. But you've got to look out for him. I'm not saying that Big Ben is going to have an amazing performance this week, but I am saying that you can't be overly confident in him. Who do you think is going to throw more touchdowns this week, though? Because it's 2 quarterbacks that are a little bit unknown, but for different reasons. You've got Geno, who's the new guy coming into Seattle, trying to replace Russ. And then you've got Big Ben, the veteran that's been in Pittsburgh forever, but is also declining. So get your votes in right now on who you think is going to throw for more touchdowns. If you think it's Geno, type G for Geno. If you think it's Ben, type B for Ben. Next up, for the Seahawks to win this game, they need improvement on the secondary, and we know the secondary has been such an issue. I'm sorry that we keep talking about it, but hey, it is official. If you haven't heard, Trey Flowers is no longer on the Seahawks. So now it is time to bring up some new guys. And if you haven't seen our Trey Flowers video, make sure you go check out Trey Flowers being released. It is on our Chat Sports Seahawks Today channel. Sidney Jones is a guy, though, that came in for Trey Flowers once he lost that starting position. Sidney Jones came in. We haven't seen much better performance by Sidney Jones, honestly. We kind of hoped that we'd see at least a little bit more than Trey Flowers. It hasn't really been there. But this is where I think Trey Brown, who just recently came off IR, is going to be really competing for this spot. Now, I don't know if we are going to be seeing him on Sunday, but Pete Carroll has made it very clear that he's full go and ready to go to compete for the starting spot. And now I think that he is competing with Sidney Jones. And Greg Bell took to Twitter saying, now that Trey Brown is back off IR, Pete Carroll is really talking up the potential of the rookie cornerback. Makes him sound like the next man to join the derby of finding the right duo starting there. I really like what Trey Brown did in training camp before the injury. So we talk about who's going to be taking that role. Who is he really competing with? I expect him to be competing more with Sidney Jones versus DJ Reed. I think DJ Reed is going to stay in his spot, and I think it'll come down to Trey Brown versus Sidney Jones. But the reason the secondary is so important in this game is because of what Big Ben and Deontay Johnson have done the last 2 weeks. In the last 2 games, Deontay Johnson and Big Ben, their opening drive, they've had deep balls for touchdowns in the opening drive. And this is where, if you're going to blow out coverage like we've done a lot in the last couple of weeks, this is easy points, and you do not want to let the Steelers get on the board early on. So we need to see some improvement. You need to expect this to come because obviously Juju isn't going to be playing. They are, thin at receiver. Right now we heard Chase Claypool is also limited in practice today. So we're not sure what's going to happen there, but you've got to watch out for Deontay Johnson. The last thing I have for the Seahawks to come up on top, this might seem like an obvious, but it's avoiding penalties. We talked about the penalties being an issue early on for the Seahawks. Early on, week 1 and week 2, it was really bad. The Seahawks were putting up a lot of penalties. It was costing them a lot of yards, and now they did improve. I will say the Seahawks did improve in the penalty area, and to be honest, the Steelers aren't doing so great in that area as well. Theirs are a little bit all over the place. As you can see, Seahawks week 1, 7. Week 2, 10 penalties. And then it decreases 4, 5, 3. Now the Steelers on the other side are a little bit all over the place as well. They had 10 penalties in week 3. They had 8 last week. Now, the reason I bring this up this week is because when you have a new guy like Geno Smith, and when I say new, I mean new to actually playing with this team in a real game, not in practice. When you are new to the team, it is easy to get off on certain easy things. It's easy for that false starts to happen. It's easy for delay of games. Those are things you want to avoid, and those are easy yards that you do not want to give up. All of this to say, though, it is important that the Seahawks win this game. It is not detrimental if they lose, but ultimately it's important that we see, I think, a pretty good performance by Geno Smith. But like we said, the Steelers are favorites right now at minus 5. The over-under is set at 42.5. Who do you guys have winning this game? Go to the comments right now. If you think the Seahawks are going to win, type SEA. If you think it's going to be the Steelers, type PIT. And I want to be honest with you guys because I want to keep it realistic. I think that the Seahawks are going to put up a good fight in this game, but I do think the Steelers are going to win 21-17. Cool. Sorry, that one was a little